Okay. That was interesting.
Are we live?
Yes, we're live. Welcome
Awesome.
to Twillow Talk. I'm Janice.
That was an interesting way to come on.
I'm experiencing a lot of feedback. This is why I'm
Okay.
Like electrical feedback, or are people sending you feedback?
It's echoing for me.
Oh, okay. I think I can actually hear your echo.
Yeah.
On my end, it's okay, but I can hear
Is
a little
it
bit of
your
an
echo or my echo?
Um,
Because I don't have pieces, but I never have earpieces.
I think it's the earpiece thing.
I'll be right back, guys.
You gonna go get some earpieces?
Can you mute your thing, Jen, for a minute? Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't know if the others are, if it's echoing for the viewers. For me, it's not. It's not. I'm okay.
So I'm thinking it might be yours, actually, Reuben.
Me? Oh, really? Okay.
Because she's got hers on mute.
I'll mute then.
And I can still hear you.
I just tried muting. Let's try it again. See what happens.
Okay, so if I talk now, will that be echoey? Nope. Oh, yep. It's me. Okay.
Okay. All right. I'll hold the show down then, guys.
You hold the show.
All right.
And I will be. It's okay, Jen. I think it's me.
I heard you, and then I thought that's great because I have no idea where my earpieces are.
I'm going to go out and come back.
Okay.
And then maybe we'll do a proper start.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
There's 7 people watching.
Well, I can introduce you before, but it'll be difficult for me to have a conversation like this. That's
Yeah. Go. Let's
So
sort out the
say
tech
hi
stuff.
to everybody because we've got quite a few people saying hello, and all the best chatters saying it's all okay, and we're gonna get it figured out. So that. So we can say hi to Kaylee, Fogo.
Awesome. I shall be right back, folks. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm glad I'm not the only one with tech issues.
Hello to Willow Love and Terrace Gerald. Awesome, guys, and thanks for putting up with a little bit of chaos this time around. But I'm telling you, it's in the energy.
And is everybody coming to us through YouTube, or is there other avenues?
Right now, it looks like everybody who's at least chatting with us is on YouTube.
Okay.
But yeah, we've got Facebook and all on there as well. So yeah, you got a couple hellos for you too, Reuben, on there.
All right.
But Tanis is the one who puts everything up, so I'm not tech savvy enough to figure all that out. But in the interim, I know Tanis normally would do an introduction, welcome to Twillow Talk, and introduce kind of a bit about what we do. These guys know us, and I think they know you from some maybe other areas. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
Yeah, I guess I'm a retired stuntman, even though I still would do stunts if I got phone calls, and well, it depends. I kind of left Hollywood a couple years ago when COVID hit. The things got a little weird down there. I moved to the mountains and have been putting a lot of my focus and time and energy into researching the extraterrestrial phenomenon, and then also producing a show that has aired on Gaia. Now it's on Tubi as well. It's Interview With E.D, Extra Dimensionals. And sort of been doing that as my main gig. Occasionally I'll do some acting things, but not really. I've kind of said goodbye to that world and putting my focus in and helping create uplifting content that can get people excited about what's to come as far as extraterrestrial contact, and sort of laying the seeds, planting the seeds, and spreading the breadcrumbs around for people to follow, so we can speed up the process if possible, if that's what everybody wants to do, and that's something I want to do. So we're doing it.
Yeah, spreading the seeds of love, right? That's how we get them here.
Yeah, pretty much.
So sorry, guys, that mine was so weird. I don't know what happened, but
is it okay now?
I'm good now. Yes.
Awesome. Great.
Yay.
My apologies. So, yes. So, what do you feel is coming? Because we usually start off the show by, doing a little bit of a preview. What's to come. Jen does the other stuff. I think that for me, I usually talk about the energies. They're crazy as usual. It's interesting. We haven't had quite as many solar flares this week, which is we've had sea level, but nothing like X like we have.
Little breather.
Yeah, so a little breather where that's concerned. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the Schumann was a little quieter, and now it's started to ramp up again. So we'll see where that one heads. And there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Gerald just added interviews with Ed to his queue.
Oh, great!
So
Thank you.
Seeing that.
Awesome.
You'll see all of Reuben's links and stuff in the description below. Too.
Cool.
Yeah, so I'm thinking we're probably going to have another little bit of Schumann activity over the next few days. That's kind of my feeling on that. Mm-hmm. What are you feeling, Reuben? Are you feeling? We were talking before the show that you feel there's lots coming.
Yeah.
Over the next few years, but
yeah, I'm kind of I do. I wouldn't consider myself, or I wouldn't promote myself as an intuit or any sort of a psychic or intuit. Even though over the years diving in these realms, definitely I feel my intuition and sort of spectrum of feeling into things has definitely widened and grown. And I think that's for most of us who are sort of diving into these areas. Whether you already have that as your background or like me, you come from a nuts and bolts sort of originally a nuts and bolts researcher, but just like a stunt guy, right? I'm a regular stunt guy, whatever that is. And so I take for me, it's a lot of data cross-checking. So I look at data sets. And I listen to the like in my interviews, I listen to what the ETs are telling us. I look at actual world events and economics. I follow economics. I was mentioning Bitcoin. I follow world events and wars and economics and social, economical, political. All the stuff that's not really fun for most people in the intuitive spectrums. So I kind of get that data and then I cross-reference it all to get a somewhat accurate prediction of what's to come. And since I've really started doing this around, before COVID actually, but through my interviews since 2014, but really diving deep in 2020 once COVID hit, because I had a little extra time. So I was like, I got to figure out how this monetary system works. I got to figure out how, what are these pharmaceutical companies up to? What's going on here? So I was accurate. I've been able to accurately predict the many aspects of the shift. There's so many, but Bitcoin going probably like today. My prediction is we might see it break all-time highs by the end of the day today. A lot of people were thinking that was not going to happen, maybe for another month or maybe well into later into the year, but it's going that direction. So I feel, because I look at that and those moves, the ETFs and the collapsing of economies and shifting of monetary systems. I look at these things, and the pulse I'm getting is we are now in an escalated fast track to a currency reset with the US dollar probably eventually coming to be backed by Bitcoin. I know that sounds crazy, but that's my prediction for. I don't know if it's going to happen within the year, but maybe by the end of this year, we could see the dollar getting so toasted in the world markets that Bitcoin could become the only savior for the US dollar, which then would stop a lot of the shenanigans that are going on with the dollar right now, with the excessive amount of printing and money being moved overseas, specifically Ukraine and Israel. A lot of the war money would probably have to come to a stop to when that happens. So I think the bad actors of the world that are playing those games, I think they see that, and that's, they're also escalated. They're like, our window is closing to be bad actors. People are finding out we're bad actors, and we're going to have to put a pedal to the metal to get our things done. And that only creates more awareness and awakening through the masses. So the masses are like, whoa, this thing is broken. Something's wrong here. So it creates a feedback loop of awakening for humanity, and essentially them choking themselves out. So I do see all this sort of playing out in the next year or two, about 2 more years. And I think once we get those big entities, the big bad actors, once they're sort of ousted and sort of put away and the shenanigans stop, then the ETs can come without the shenanigans that are going on right now with the ET disclosure topics. The fear-based stuff. Are they demons and all the stuff that's getting pushed through the press as and there's some good people trying to do good things in Congress, and things are happening, but there's a lot of silliness and shenanigans, and they're trying to create a limited hangout for a lot of people, or for the let's say the narrative is kind of a limited hangout. And if you're part of these groups, then yes, you have access, and if you don't, anyways, I think that's all going to fall apart in the next couple of years. And I think that's what our ET brothers and sisters are waiting for, is for that to fall apart, so then they can come down without us, trying to nuke them or blast them out of the sky, or other strange narratives that get perpetuated as far as, they're gods and we need to worship them and all that garbage. So I don't know. So that's my sort of
that's your prediction.
3-year prediction, 2 to 3 year prediction. So I do believe, I was actually talking to the Palladians yesterday through Wendy Kennedy, and 2026 is supposed to be sort of, there's an ultimatum that's been given to governments, that by 2026, if they don't sort of come clean, so to say, that we're going to have contacts is going to happen no matter what. So or open contact, disclosure, whatever. I mean, in a sense, I think disclosure is kind of, we're already there. Most of America now. I was blown away. My mother-in-law was visiting from Japan last week, and none of the disclosure news is making it overseas to Japan. I don't know about other countries, but the congressional hearings was not even mentioned at all in mainstream Japanese news. So even in our news, it's, unless you're paying attention, it's a blurb on Fox News or MSNBC or whatever. They just kind of briefly mention it for a second. Yeah, congressional hearings about UFOs. Woohoo! Okay, moving on. Next subject. And you're like, that's like the biggest thing in the world. That's like the biggest thing in human history. How can we just gloss over that?
The joys of news propaganda.
It's true.
Only sharing what they want to share.
Totally.
Yeah.
So it does look good for disclosure in 2026, based on what I'm hearing, and just also looking at the steps that need to happen for that to happen. They can't just come in right now. And a lot of people are like, well, just show up. Well, yeah.
It would still cause some big panic, I think. People, we see that that I know it was.
1 second, I'm going to close my door.
Absolutely. Even though we know it wasn't real, the one in Florida, it still created sort of quite a buzz around it, and there was good and bad buzz around it. So that
was an orchestrated event. I talked to some insiders, and that was totally part of the let's scare the hell out of people, ET agenda, get ready.
Yeah.
You know, and look how it sort of petered out. You know, it was more of a cool factor than a
Yeah.
scare factor. I think some people bought the fear, but
yeah.
Well, I think that's an across the board thing where we're going to have some people that are going to buy the fear and some people that are going to stand up against it. And we see that through so many different things that have happened, even over the last few years, that there's going to be people on all sides of what change is coming.
Of course.
Well, that's right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting you talk about 2026, and Raw and Human Design talks about the change that's going to be coming with our design and how we're set up in 2027, right? And that there's going to be a whole new way that people are going to be. One of the channels isn't going to be there anymore. And so there's going to be a lot more of that intuitive communication. And it's such an interesting thing to be in line with timing wise when we are potentially going to be having, extraterrestrial interaction and all of that in the day-to-day, because that's going to need a lot more of that kind of intuitive connection as well. In order for us to be able to really understand and be accepting, we have to feel that on a deeper level. So it'll be an interesting thing to kind of see how this all lines up together.
The P's also mentioned, the Palladians also mentioned how we're going through sort of a photon belt in the solar system, or in the galaxy, and or our solar system is going through this photon belt within the galaxy, traveling as we do. We're not static. Everything's constantly in motion. And then there was a mention, and I wasn't able to unpack it. I wanted to get into it a little bit deeper, but there was mention of a dimensional wall that we would be going through, perhaps around that time.
Oh, interesting.
2026, 2027. And then that would be a complete rewriting of our operating system.
That is so in line with
Well, one of the messages that I had from Commander Ashtar was this 26, 27 time frame too. So it's definitely something to that. And all I did was ask when they were going to come down, and that was kind of the response that I had. I didn't get into a lot of detail with them, but so that was. It's interesting how all these things line up, right?
And it's interesting too, we're talking about all of this right now, and the transit that we're in at the moment. We went in from March 1st and we'll be in it through the 6th. So we're getting close to the middle, we're in the middle, I guess, of it. But it's the transit 63, which is a mental one. And so it's about moving from doubt to equality and then to truth, right? I'm really recognizing the energy that comes when the mind is trying to figure it all out and it can't, right? There isn't logical explanation for everything. There isn't this ability to make sense of everything that's happening in the way that the mind is used to being able to make sense of it. And so what happens is we end up potentially going into this victim aspect that's, associated with doubt. So self-doubt or suspicion, right? And how that can show up for us, and the pressure that energy puts on us to understand things that maybe we can't understand, not on that logical solution kind of level. Right. And then being able to move through that, if we can use that doubt not as something that suppresses and pushes everything down, but that opens a path for inquiry, right? We can look at it, we can become open and curious and kind of go, okay, the mind can't understand this, but what is possible, right? And in that moment, we, Richard Rudd, who does the Gene Keys, talks about the ladder of self-inquiry, right? And how do we begin to step up that and recognize that the more open-minded we can be about something, the more potential is there, right? And so really opening to wonder and curiosity. And this energy allows us to open to possibilities that maybe we never even took into consideration before, right?
Like ETs.
Like ETs, right? And so noticing when we ebb and flow between this kind of fixation of things having to be a certain way, and then being able to really, I like that, wander and wonder, right? To be able to really
Nice.
move into that place of openness. And it brings us to the Sid here, the enlightened aspect that is truth, right? And what it is to really, Richard associates it with the yogic path of inquiry, right? This ability to kind of come into this deeper knowing of truth beyond what the mind can comprehend, right? That collective access that we have to what ultimate truth is, and that ability to move beyond intellectual understanding, but really to recognize the interconnectedness of all things and the wisdom that comes from that, right? So that's the energy that we're in right now. And then on the 6th, we're going to transit into the 22nd gate. And the 22nd gate is an emotional energy, right? So come Friday, we're tapping back into that. But the 22nd gate is associated with deep intuition and spiritual knowing and connection to things greater than ourselves and all of that. So think about the way that we're moving through the transits and what we're opening up to, or the potential of what we could be opening up to, right, in our understanding.
It'd be interesting.
I have a membership portal where we do weekly interviews. That's where I was talking with Wendy Kennedy in the P. It's kind of an extension. I call it Interview With E.D 2.0. It's kind of an extension of the show, and we have a live audience. We can interact and do things. And within that portal, the membership portal, I have a different sort of series of interviews I've been doing with the Raw Collective. And I don't know if you're familiar with, back in the 80s, Carla Record, and she had a team that they would bring through the raw consciousness in a number of books, I think, called The Law of One.
Yes.
If you're familiar with that material. So this is a different channeler, but it's very much that raw energy.
Okay.
And I've been asking them and having dialogue every couple of weeks. We do a new interview, and I think the latest interview, Ra was very adamant about, if we are not paying attention to our intuition and our instincts, we will not survive. And that is I think a big part of this new operating system is, like you were saying, less of the logic, more in the feeling and the emotional spectrums. Mm-hmm. And for those that are so tuned out of their that inner dialogue, that voice, that or however it shows up for each person, it's going to show up differently. But if we're not tuned into that, who knows? It doesn't look good for is what Ra was saying, for moving into the new energy of the planet.
Yeah. It makes perfect sense that we have to hone in on that energy if we want to be able to understand, communicate, feel connected, feel grounded, and have any idea what's actually happening as life moves forward.
Well, there's so much telepathic communication that's coming right now that it's amazing that we can, really, it's a time to develop it amongst ourselves. You know what I mean? So practicing that with friends and stuff is a lot of fun to try. I have done a little bit of that. I'm not, but I mean, I talk to the guides all the time, and that's a lot of fun. That comes in pretty clear. I think that's something that we could really hone in on. As humans, we've been taught not to. We've been taught that's not a value, right, that we should hold, and so we block it, I think, with our beliefs.
Well, when you think about it, I mean, we spend a lot of time on the show talking about emotions and our ability to tap into emotions. And the solar plexus, which is the emotional center, right now is just a motor center, but it's going to be the main awareness center. And so if you think about it, if almost 50% of the population have this defined as their authority, so I'm talking human design terms here, right? That means that 50% of the population is getting an opportunity to tap into an awareness center that the entire world is transitioning to. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's a reason why so much of the population is designed this way right now.
Yeah. And I know there's there are a lot of beings watching us right now, because we're going from such a dark state into such a light state. We're doing this transition, and so far quite successfully in historical terms, and fairly quickly in
Mhm.
terms of that. So, that's kudos to us for being able to jump on that. But it is required for people to stretch, right, and get to know themselves and raise their vibration and do the work, right? The know thyself work. So.
And what any suggestions on people, like if they, like someone just coming in here and not knowing what is the work? What
The
what are
work.
what do you suggest? What are some of the early phases or early aspects of the work?
It's so funny you say that, and immediately my mind goes, because psychotherapy background, right? My mind goes to Byron Katie, the work. Like that's the whole program that she brings forward. And the beautiful thing about the work in the way that she does it is challenging our perception, right? Ultimately, that's the basis of it. So there's 4 questions on a turnaround with the work. And the way that it goes is I have this thought or this belief, right? And then the first question, is it true? Right. And
But what
sometimes
is truth?
we can hold a belief and we can go, well, yeah, it really feels true. Right. Like I might think Tanis doesn't like me. Right. That's
Not true, by the way.
That's of course that's true. But is it true? And I'm like, in this moment, I really feel like that's true. Like Tanis really doesn't like me. Right. And so we go through this process. So the second question is it absolute truth? Can you know beyond a doubt that this thing that you believe is truth? Right. It's like, well, okay, no. Because obviously we can't know that anything is absolute truth. And I can't really know what's going on inside of Tanis. And even though I'm feeling all of these feels, this is, what's going on for me. But no, I don't know that it's truth. Right. And so then question number 3 is, what happens inside of me when I believe it's true? Okay, so I'm emotional and I don't want to come on the show anymore and I don't feel very good about life. And
Stepping into the drama triangle.
Okay, so fine. I recognize all of the things that I do and the way that I respond when I believe that this is true. All right, how would I be if I didn't have this belief? Right? And now all of a sudden there's a shift. Well, I'd be open. I'd be curious. I'd want to talk to her and find out what's going on. I'd want to express how I'm feeling and have that reciprocated, have it validated, gain that reassurance. I maybe wouldn't even say anything at all because I would know that it's not true and it wouldn't be an issue, right? And so you go through all of these different things that could come up if I didn't have that belief. And then it's the turnaround, right? I don't like Tanis. Well, that's not true. I don't like myself. Ooh. There might be something going on. Right? And so we really start to process through what's going on inside of us, what narratives we have, what lenses we hold, all of the things that we think and we base everything on and go, okay, is there something there that needs to be adjusted or changed? And so when we talk about this, the work or the work on this journey, I think a lot of it is going to always come back to, can I observe? Can I know what's happening inside of me? And can I just reflect on that and see what I can do differently?
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's like you pull out a belief and you're like, do I still believe this? Is this still working for me? If so, I keep it. If not, throw it out, right? But it takes time to have the switch to change. You have to keep pulling it up and going, okay, yeah, no, it still doesn't work for me. And I think the other part is to start to clear out some of those dense emotions that we've pushed down. So, pulling out the emotion and going, ooh, that's kind of an ugly thing. That was an ugly emotion. I didn't really like that emotion.
The emotion isn't the problem.
I know, but people feel like that. I'm just doing it in like layman's terms, right? It's the emotion itself is just energy, but we tend to think that, the denser emotions are like a thing. And so we need to experience them. We need to acknowledge that we have them and then move through them, right? So
one of the biggest on my journey, one of the biggest sort of quick little cheat code tools that's really helped with me, and we actually brought this up yesterday with the Palladians, is asking the question, if it's a thought, a belief, or an emotion, how does this serve me? And then you can really boil it down really quick. Like, okay, is this thought or this process, or for example, is me, this Tannis not liking me? Is that, how does that serve me? Or is that belief?
Okay,
How
I
does
like
that
you
belief?
too, Reuben.
Yeah. How does that serve me? And then you can go down the list, like you were just saying,
Yeah.
and then quickly eliminate and get rid of that belief system, because you quickly realize that there's only, negativity and untruths and negative emotions coming from that sort of idea. So you can let it go quite quickly. So it's a nice little technique to go down the list of beliefs and ideas and projections and whatever, or situations, if you're in a relationship or in a, anything you're doing, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just ask the question, how does it serve me?
I love that.
Yeah. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to ask you a few questions, Reuben.
Yeah, please. That's why I'm here.
So what's the most interesting message that you've gotten from your channels?
Most interesting message. Oh my God. I don't think it can be
Pick just one?
boiled down to just
Well,
one.
we could go through a couple. What are the ones that stick out
Yeah.
for you that might be still relevant, or things that they've said and you've been like, wow, it's happening, those kinds of things too.
I started the Interviews with Ed show in 2014. Actually, Wendy Kennedy was my first interview.
Nice.
On the show, and it was a nice little reunion yesterday. And the one thing that kept coming up back then in 2014, moving forward, was humanity is going through this giant shift, and going up until 2019, interviewing Lee Harris, who channels the Z's, and the at that time they gave a sort of a 9-year timeline of how it's going to be 9 years of pretty craziness, that we're going to have to use to get through, to the other side of this big shift. At the time, this is pre-COVID, I thought we were already in it. We were already at wars. We were already sort of, a lot was going on, a lot of conflicts on the planet and emotions and economical strife. So when COVID hit, it was like, holy moly. All right. Lee was not joking around here.
Not joking around. Yeah.
So I think this general arc of humanity is going through this giant transformation, a new operating system, the shift, so that's just been consistent through all the channelers from 2014 when I started the journey. They were saying it way before, but it came into my awareness that was, ET contact is just one small aspect of this overarching giant shift in consciousness that humanity is going to go through. Mm-hmm. And then, as we're going through it, all the nuggets of, like we were just sharing earlier, of moving more into curiosity and emotion and getting less attached to the sort of left brain stuff, right brain more feminine, letting go of the male dominated society and leaning more into the feminine energy, and that these were aspects of this big shift that were going to happen. So early on, since I kind of got the downloads in that sense, paying attention, I'm like, all right, I better get my shift in gear here, and I started trying to lean into those aspects, more into the intuitive aspects, looking at different modalities, doing inner work, self-reflection. I started doing medicine journeys with ayahuasca and other plant medicines and shaman work, and that really opened my heart and helped me go into a direction where I am now, where I'm able to sort of see things through a new lens. I guess in the beginning of the journey, we're looking at ETs through this lens of these are extra dimensional beings or whatever from other realms. and we don't really think that that they're connected to us in that sense. And then as my journey went, I realized that we're more interconnected than we know, and in order to have those to increase those connections, if that's something you desire, is to increase your connections with these other higher dimensional beings, higher in the sense of frequency, higher frequency dimensional beings, then you have to raise your frequency and you have to raise your vibration. And so what does that entail? Okay, I've got to change my thinking, less make more conscious choices and things that I'm consuming. I was heavy into the Hollywood machine as far as my work as a stuntman and doing video games, which there's a lot of violence in that. There's a lot of killing. There's a lot of like a lot of the themes of those games is about, going, killing and blowing up the bad guy and obtaining all these weapons and different things. And I was an actor in those. So I was this, macho actor guy, kill demon slayer and, Marine and all those things. And I just realized, I'm like, am I really, if this is the direction I'm wanting to go with my energy, what you put out is what you get back. So as I'm vibrating and shifting, and you can still sort of have one foot in each camp, but it got to a place where I was doing that. I would just pop in those worlds, do my job, have fun on set. It was a lot of fun and good times. But when that started to not happen, when going and hanging out with the friends started to become more challenging, where I couldn't hold the frequency, the higher the enjoyment, and then it became kind of a burden, then I knew I had to pull out from those things. So I guess there's so many aspects, but it's really in order to, and we've heard this a million times, but it is absolutely true. The only way we're going to have the change is to be the change. Yeah. And so many people are looking for that external. When the AT is going to land? When is this shift thing going to be over? And when is all this stuff? It's like, no, you internally, you have to take the physical steps, not just mental, but physical steps in your physical reality to make those changes to usher in this new world. Otherwise, the new world's going to be here, but you'll be in a pocket somewhere where you're depressed, not healthy, and really feeling the pressure from the external reality because you're not making the internal change. Yeah. So that has been I guess some of the key takeaways from that journey. I know it's not like specific, like this ET said this and go do that. It's just been a collective of taking all the information in and making those shifts in myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I think that's good advice for all of us to be aware of, right? And that's when we were talking about doing the work. That's part of the work, is to raise the vibration. And yeah, there's going to be people that are going to fall out of your life that'll just fall away because they're not on your path. And we don't have soul contracts with everybody forever in our life, right? There's always that sort of transition times for people. People come into our lives for different reasons, and often it's for a season, as they always say, right?
Yeah.
So
totally,
we do transition through.
Yeah. I really appreciate too what you were saying about that for a time having your foot in and your foot out, and eventually, we do end up making a shift in whatever that looks like for us in our journey, but being able to be okay with that and the letting go that comes with that, right? And I think sometimes we think, okay, on the spiritual journey, I either have to make this huge change right away, or you go, well, I still want to do all my stuff, right?
Yeah.
And we end up, on this like tipping scale, as opposed to just going, I'm just going to go one step at a time, right? And I'm going to see how it feels. And then coming back to the question that you said earlier, like, how does this serve me, right? What is this actually doing or bringing to me to meet my goals and my journey that I want to be on, right? And at what point am I willing to say, you know what, this isn't really serving me anymore?
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah, and I think there's value in doing that transition. It's certainly that's why I do the HR stuff still. I always joke about that, keeping me grounded, because I do that. There may come a time where I decide that's no longer serving me, but at this time, I'm still doing the transition piece, and in many ways, I just have changed how I look at it too, or how I do it. So, for me, the HR piece is about, let's bring human back into human resources, and so that's sort of a spiritual outlook on human resources, and that's kind of, so I've blended it in that way, and I think that's sort of been the gradual shift for me in terms of that, because I've had this two types of careers going at the same time for quite a while now. So, but I do notice a shift in how I do it in that. And I think that's probably common for many people. We might be still doing a lot of those sort of, we'll call it 3D aspects, or the dense, the lower vibration aspects of our lives. We might be doing that, but we start to do it differently. And it's more about how we do it than sort of necessarily what we're doing. In most cases, I mean, you can't do that like you were saying with yours, Reuben, with it being a lot of shooting and all of that stuff. It's pretty hard to do that.
Hard to really move the Hollywood machine. But but there are a lot of great filmmakers and people in the industry that are aware and are shining their light, and that's and those are always great projects to be a part of. I think it's just in so many aspects of our society we've had a Brett Weinstein, he uses the word capture. I like that term, because not everybody, not all of these industries are bad or were ever really bad in the beginning. They've been sort of captured at the top. A lot of these, from the film industry to pharmaceuticals to the, so many aspects. And because they've been captured, it doesn't mean people working for them are bad people. There's so many people in there that want to course correct and do the right thing. But at the top, because of the capturing aspects, it's just made it very difficult for change to happen without some major, collapse. And we're seeing different aspects of different industries, like the pharmaceutical industry now is now going through its collapse. Pfizer and Moderna, their stocks have plummeted. Nobody's getting the jab anymore, as they shouldn't. But it's quite clear, and they're they're shifting, they're doing their things, but that's what it's going to take. I think it's going to take the good people to realize at what point do I just bail from this? Is this not working? Has it been totally compromised where I can't do anything? And there's many aspects in the film industry that have been totally captured, unfortunately. But there still are good independent things going on and different shows happening. And there's other aspects of our society that haven't been captured. So we all do the best with what we got, right?
Yeah,
that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think Avatar was a great project for you to be on. That was some of my favorite movies, Avatar 1 and 2. Yeah. And 2, I talked to some of my friends. I didn't work on 2, but talked to some of my friends, and they stuck in there and saw it to the end. And they were, filming during COVID. I'm not sure. I kind of lost contact when the mandates started happening with the jab mandates. I totally disconnected at that point. So I don't know what happened. I know it was short-lived, but I was definitely questioning and trying to pull as many friends out of that madness machine as possible. So I don't know if Avatar, if they actually ended up following through with the mandates or not, but yeah, it's hard. The whole industry got really dark there for a minute. I think the movie itself, though, it was well put together in terms of the messaging.
Even part 2. Even
Yeah.
part two was a little more. It still had great aspects. It's a nice balance for people who like the action and the moving, all the technology stuff, and then
Yeah.
it had this nice balance of the message of reconnecting. And James Cameron is such a he just loves the ocean and all things involved with that. So I think his heart was really in part two with bringing these underwater aspects to the film. I think that was a big joy for him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it brings the elements in, right? Which is great. It's full of creation when you're doing that. And I think, and you and I were talking before on how you had to do some training and some study in order to do your part in Avatar. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, a big part of my journey on sort of, I guess, my awakening in a sense, was my job on Avatar was to be an actor and a performer. Even there was a lot of stunts, there was a lot of background acting with the Na'vi and portraying the Na'vi in the most accurate way possible. And Jim just being a stickler for detail. He would give me homework assignments. So like he gave me this one time, he gave me this knife that he kind of designed based on another number of other indigenous knives that he looked up and he thought this was cool. So he's like, okay, Reuben, this is, you're a Na'vi. Remember who you are. You're a Na'vi. This is your knife. And you are very, you grew up from birth. Basically, this knife was in your hands. You know how to use this knife in ways, and it's your tool. It's your lifeline. It's everything. So how would a Na'vi, with this proportionate body thing, and living in this environment, how would they use this knife to, say, gut a fish or to do mundane tasks, and play with that? So that would be my homework, and then use this knife, get really familiar with the knife, and do all these things and practice cutting real fish open, on set, and then doing it for pretend right after that. So there was a lot of embodying the aspects of the Na'vi, because it was more than just doing some physical motion. It's like I had really tried to immerse myself in that idea of a long-limbed, skinny character on another planet, that's you're very connected to Earth, and aspects, modeling them after our indigenous cultures. So I started studying a lot of indigenous cultures and trying to understand them more. And then I started finding all these connection points that all these indigenous cultures from around the world had so many similar belief systems. And then that got me on the path of, okay, well, was there more here than we've been told? How are these pyramids that are all over the planet? How are they so similar in design and perhaps function? Really, at that point, it's still a mystery, but at that point for me, it was really a mystery. And then I just kept diving into that, and it just following the breadcrumbs, which led me to stories of Atlantis and Lemuria, and then to other concepts and ideas that really opened my mind, which allowed, I think, in 2007, while I was working on Avatar, but had a day off at home, I was doing laundry, and I had a fleet show up for me. And that was sort of the big red pill of like, your reality is not what you think. Here you go, Reuben, fight on that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So that was really, I think, the turning point for me, because now all of a sudden I'm faced with this physical reality that showed up for me, that just changed my whole, the ideas of ETs and things were there, the seeds were planted, but I never really sort of took the bait, so to say. I just go, okay, that's a possibility. All right, I'm just going to focus on being an action star over here. And then, and then when that happened, I was like, okay, I cannot not pursue this. Curiosity really kicked in. As my buddy Jeremy Corbell says, my curiosity was weaponized And and I started diving deep into trying to understand the phenomenon. So so it was a combination of things, but I think the embodiment of the Navi helped shift my frequency or whatever to allow me to have that experience, and then the rest is history.
Mhm.
Wow.
And now you had also said that you had spent some time doing the CE5 stuff.
Yeah. So I became aware of Dr. Greer while I was working on Avatar. YouTube had just come online, so like in 2005 or 6 ish, I think, is when YouTube came out. And we would watch a lot of these videos on set. So we're back on set, and we'd have technical problems with the computers and things. And okay,
I don't know
system
anything about
crashed.
technical problems.
Yeah, well, no, it was what we're dealing with here is nothing compared to what they had to deal with.
I'm sure.
So we'd get the call, okay, actors, back to your rooms, which we didn't have independent dressing rooms. We had sort of like a collective. We had the makeup room, and it was usually a small crew, so there'd only be a handful of us on set, like 5 or 6 people, for a lot of those background Navi scenes, and sometimes we just have like Zoe and Sam on set, and a handful of us were sort of there as supporting actors. So we'd go back in the back room, and we're watching YouTube, and all these videos are coming up, and then Dr. Greer's Disclosure Project comes up, 2001, and I was like, how did I not know about this? This is crazy. What, you have all these whistleblowers talking about NASA whistleblowers talking about how things were photoshopped and how ETs are real, and they've been hiding this. And I'm like, this is crazy. How come the world doesn't know about this? So that was another sort of just starting to unlock, uncrustify the pineal gland a little bit. And so later, when I did have that ET experience, or the UFO experience, I looked up Dr. Greer and started looking into his what he was preaching, and eventually signed up in 2010 for one of his CE5 events out in the middle of the desert in Arizona, I believe. Yeah, near Tucson. And then I did a weekend sort of power event with about 200 people, and had more sightings. And then it was for me, that was the seal in the coffin. That was it. We are not alone, and I've got to pursue this the best of my ability. Like I was super weaponized at that time, my curiosity, and then the things just fell into place. So shortly after that, my buddy Jeremy, who, I don't know, you probably have seen Jeremy on TV. He goes on all the media channels, the guy with the beard that says, yeah, we need to find out what's going on here, and this is the government's hiding stuff from us. So that he's very like stern and starch. But we both started kind of in the same arena, him being a martial arts jiu-jitsu master. He had his own schools, and we actually worked together on a couple films because he had a very unique style, and he was brought in to work on some of the films that I was working on. So we got to hang out, and we started talking about ETs, and hey, you like ETs? Yeah, me too. I'm interested in that stuff. Yeah, let's check our notes and stuff. And then soon after that, actually Jeremy introduced me to another gentleman, and we ended up all of us producing the citizen hearing on disclosure, which was a 5-day mock congressional hearing in Washington, D.C. And we had 6 former members of Congress and about 50 witnesses, ex-military and government folks, and I brought Steven Greer in to testify for that as well. So I'm having these C5 meditation experiences. I continue to do that on my own, even without Greer, exploring the consciousness aspects, simultaneously exploring the government cover-up stuff, and then after the hearings, we were having or during the hearing, leading up to the hearings, and then even after the hearings, I had a visual effects studio in the marina. I was doing video games. I was producing video games, working on video games, acting in them. and had this amazing space that we turned into a meeting hall once a month, every first Tuesday of the month, and we called it the ET Media Meetup Group. And we'd bring in people from the industry to just hang out and talk about ETs and disclosure, and share notes. And at that time, I had Wendy Kennedy and Nora Harold and Daryl Anka and these amazing channelers that at the time I didn't even know really too much about channeling. That wasn't really on my radar. So I didn't know they were these, famous channelers, but they came and they just said, yeah, we're in the industry, like Daryl Anka being at that time, he was still working in Hollywood from time to time doing visual effects stuff.
Yeah.
That was his day job, and he channeled Bashar on the weekends. So,
I think Bashar's been keeping him a little busier than that lately.
yeah. So that time, this was 2012-ish, 10, 11, 12. So I didn't even know who the guy was, and he's there every week or every time we do these meetings. And then somebody showed me a video and like, have you heard Bashar? And I'm like, wait, this guy, he comes to my thing, and I'm like watching it. And I'm like, oh my God, that's profound. What he's saying is really on top of it. That's crazy. So then I started diving into the channeling world and listening to their messages, and it all fit what the missing aspects of the evidence-based research that I was deep into with the citizen hearing and all the military testimony, and even the abductees who I interviewed probably hundreds of abductees at that time. When I started getting this channeling information, and I was talking about this yesterday on my show with Wendy, she had planted the seed. The abduction phenomenon is a soul contract, and I had never heard that term. So I think that was like in 2000. I want to say 2012, 13-ish. So I really dove deep into that information. I'm like, my God, this is such a mountain of information. How come the community, the UFO community, the researchers aren't looking at this? This makes it all make sense.
It does.
So then I started my show in 2014. Unfortunately, like my buddy Jeremy and other researchers, they really couldn't make that jump into the channeling world. It was just too big of a I don't know. I don't really know the mechanism of why they are not able to make that jump, but I guess there's not
a leap of faith, right?
There is a bit of leap of faith. Yeah.
Now that we're in is a perfect example of why people can't make that leap of faith.
Yeah. So for me, it actually was super logical. Like my logical brain said, what they're saying fits everything what these other people are saying, hear them out. And then as I would hear them out, it just made even more sense. And then you start to understand the science. You understand about vibrational frequencies and quantum entanglement and, the observer effect and all of these actual hard sciences that make what the channelers are saying, absolutely, it just solidifies and makes it more real. However, I guess there's just not enough of the nuts and bolts researchers that, like you said, want to make that leap of faith first, because if you do that, you can connect the dots later, but it's just that first hump to get over, to be like, okay, is this person acting, or is this person making it all up, or is there an actual resonance harmonics that these people are shifting their own personal vibration and then connecting to a unseen force that can come through and bring information through. That just seemed, I think, for a lot of the people in the nuts and bolts research, that's too hard for them to fathom, even though we have all the science to prove it, that it's a reality.
And so many channelers, they look very different once they bring them in. I have a couple of mine, especially the one that I channeled, Archangel Michael. Like my whole face changed when I brought him in. Like it's all the energy that you see that totally changes as they come in. So it's when that happens, that helps people to understand that there is like a real fundamental change that happens to create the messages that come through. But it's difficult for people to think, because there are good actors out there.
Yeah, but there's not that good.
Yeah.
I've been in the acting industry for my whole big
Yeah.
chunk of my life. I've seen the greatest actors, and the greatest actors are channeling. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the mechanism and to have an untrained actor, so to say, like a Daryl, that just for so many people, it's not like, again, they don't have the acting background. I guess I had the perfect, all the circumstances as far as having the acting, the research aspects with the nuts and bolts evidence-based stuff. So having all of those sort of backgrounds and then looking at this through a very critical scientific lens, I'm like, there's no way this guy can just pull this information out of his memory banks without a stutter, without anything, and have access to this information. There's a mechanism there, and I want to know what that is. So I dove deep into that.
Yeah. You talk about their personalities too, like the channels, they change personality. I know that Daryl is very different from Bashar. When you see that the two of them speaking, they're very, very different in personality and everything.
Totally. Yeah.
Just thinking about where the world is today comparatively to where it was, say, with Lemuria, Atlantis, and ancient Egypt and all of that, where science and what is now considered the woo-woo of life was completely intertwined. There was no separation between the two, right? But then we've gone through all of these changes in evolutions, as they call them, of human development that has separated those aspects and don't really understand the power that they have together, right? And so it's really about a reawakening of this connectedness of all things, again, right? To understand that they're meant to be interwoven to support and to help us in this process. But we have to get past that line, that wall that went down and said, no, these two things are completely separate, and we're only going to be in the science camp. We're not going to be in the spiritual camp, and rejected that, right? And so we're just in this time now of opening to that again. But they're not connected the way that they were in the past and the way that they could be again.
Well, and I think they'll get there. I think that
that's part of my research, is that's been done by design.
Yeah.
There's by, you could say, negatively oriented ETs or extra dimensionals that are, I'm sure you've heard of some of the darker stories of some of these dark cults on the planet that worship and give their power away to some of these darker entities. I won't even name the names because I don't want to bring them in, but there is there's a lot of cults on the planet, and some are more organized than we believe or we understand. And part of that is also part of the cloaking of some of these darker energies and nefarious actors who use these darker energies and magic to trick and manipulate the human collective. So when you can identify those aspects and realize that we are in a soul, it's still a soul contract, sort of illusionary world. But when you realize the mechanisms and what's causing it, it's a little bit easier to snap out of the spell and say, oh, that's why collective humanity is stuck in this rut. Because there's some nefarious energies that are sort of poking and prodding people to go in one direction, and to and intentionally negate this amazing technology, as you were saying, with the with all of the different things that used to be intertwined with society, and we didn't have it so separated. So I don't know, I guess compartmentalized. That was the word. Everything's been so compartmentalized these days with all the different sciences and understandings, and we're I think back in those other societies, Atlantis, Lemuria, they were not as compartmentalized and refined.
Not at all.
And there's benefits for doing that, for compartmentalization. There's like the pharmaceutical industry stripping away all of the different aspects of certain plants to get to understand the properties of certain things, so then they can create a drug out of. There's benefits to that. Most of the time there's the negative aspects outweigh the benefits, but sometimes there are some benefits to that, and that exploration, I think, was and those types of exploration, I think, is part of the human story.
Yeah.
And we're just rediscovering, oh, that was a bad idea, let's not do that anymore. But at least we know what it does now. We know where that leads, so let's just okay, good.
Well, that's what we're here for, is to learn, right? All of us.
Yes.
So as a collective and individually.
Yeah, I want to go back to, because you had mentioned at one point about the pineal gland and just that decrusting of it, right? And when we really geek out for a minute, right? But when we understand what that's about, right, and how it monitors our sleep-wake cycles, and it's about the retina being able to take in the dark and the light, and what that means for us on a grander, more spiritual scale. We go through these phases of dark and light, right, where we're experiencing different energies that are coming, and they're there for a reason. And even those dark energies are there to open us to something else, right? And so the more that we're able to recognize these cycles and all, the more that we can, it's like Shakespeare, nothing's good or bad, but thinking makes it so, right? This idea that it's all just part of what is meant for us. We need to be able to go through that dark phase so that we can go, okay, this isn't okay anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? We need to have a change, and then we can awake in the light kind of idea, right? Now I'm just using the cycles of sleep and awake, but being able to really understand what that means. And it's so interesting too, because the gate that we're in right now, each gate is connected to a body part. Can you guess what this gate's connected to?
The head, the mind, the eye.
The pineal gland.
There we go. Yeah, we can't make this stuff up.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That always happens. Yeah.
So it's really, it's really beautiful to listen to kind of what you're talking about and what's coming in and all of that, and understanding that, we're all in this flow, and we do have these contracts, and we're here for a reason, because we're meant to be coming through and bringing these things together, right? Like Tanis, as you were saying, you're in HR, but you're bringing in the spirituality in it, right?
Exactly.
I'm in mental health, but I bring in the spirituality aspect of it, right? And I think that, we're all here right now, and we have this choice, to bring spirituality into whatever industry we're in, even if it's not just a spiritual industry.
Well, and that's how we get back to being more like those other societies, right? Where we bring that through all of the industries, all of what we do, we bring those aspects through.
Yeah. And so, noticing, where you're pulled, and maybe, Reuben, as you were saying, you don't want to go back to necessarily doing the shoot 'em out kind of.
Yeah, I think I'm done with that part of my life. Yeah.
Yeah.
However, at some point, I don't know if this is still true. I made the claim proudly that I probably hold the Guinness Book World Record for the most number of deaths performed by an actor.
Oh, wow.
Because of my
I'm
line
really
of work,
sorry.
motion capture. Yeah. So I probably died more than any other actor on the planet because of the aspects of my work with the motion capture compared to film. There is in one day I die 1,000 times. Literally, I get shot in the head this way and fall over, and then I get shot in the head this way and I have to fall over and die. Shot in the head, and then I get shot by an arrow in the neck, and then I get shot by a bazooka, and then I die now. So literally the shot list would be 1,000 deaths a day. And
so you got this reincarnation thing down pat.
I am ready to go. Let me tell you.
A whole new thing for Die Before You Die. Holy moly.
So I'm good, but I'm good. I think I'm good on the death thing. I don't need to go and die anymore. I've done that. I've
We're
died
good.
every way you can possibly think of, and I don't
Mhm.
need to go back into that world anymore. So sorry for the
That's awesome. That's
Mhm.
awesome. Well, I can't believe it, guys, but it's actually 10 minutes after our
Oh my
usual
goodness.
time. It's
Wow.
just flown
Time flies.
by.
Yeah.
And we're just so thrilled that you were able to join us today, Reuben. We
Thanks for
totally
having me.
honored, and thank you so much. Jen usually pulls a card here at the end of the show,
Oh, cool.
so we'll let her pull her card there because it's got some stuff to do. We send them off with homework,
Yeah,
for the
homework.
week.
Well, and
Excellent.
I talked too about that moving from the masculine to the feminine. So the deck that we're using is Seeds from the Sacred Feminine.
Oh, nice.
Okay, so it's really connecting with that energy. So that one just jumped right there. Listen with your heart, not just your ears. How fitting is that for what we've been talking about? Let's see, make sure I can
Nice.
get the focus in there. There we go.
Look at that. That's all about channeling. Look at that channel coming down.
Look at that.
That's perfect for your show.
All right, so let me open it up and then I'll hold the card back up for you guys as I just read the little blurb here. All right. Nope, that's a different listen.
We're supposed to listen. That's why we have 2 ears.
Okay, it's this listen. I found it. Okay. All right, here we go. All right, so listen with your heart, not just your ears. Are you able to receive the information coming to you from your relations? What are you choosing not to hear? Your loved ones have valuable information for you. Listen to them when they speak, for it honors them and your own sacred journey. Listening is a great skill that many humans have forgotten. Creator gave you 2 ears so that you can use both parts of your mind, sacred masculine logic and sacred feminine empathy, to hear what is being communicated to you. Are you letting only one part of your mind listen for you? This creates imbalance and prevents the circle of understanding from completing its path. When you are in balance, the 2 parts of your mind work simultaneously, and your heart opens. True listening comes from an attentive and receptive heart. Let compassion balance your mind and listen carefully, grandchild.
Beautiful.
Amazing. Yeah, love it.
Thank you. Reuben, do you want to mention your event that's coming up before we go?
Yes. Yeah, so I'm producing an event, 2 events. I'll be in Sedona this weekend for the Sedona Ascension Retreat. I believe that's the website. And just doing a couple workshops and classes there. Let's see if I can pull it up here. Yes, Sedona Ascension Retreats with an S. And then I'm producing an event in Mount Shasta. Let's see if I can actually get it in there. It may not go. Oh, no, it's not wanting to go there, but maybe we can put a link later.
Mhm.
You see the private chat if I can get it in there. There we go.
Okay.
And then I'm producing another event, or I'm producing an event. I'm not producing the one this weekend. Producing this event, which I will also be speaking at, is the Lemurian Life Expo, and that is a 5-day event in Mount Shasta. It's sort of a 3-day conference, sort of your typical stage conference event with speakers coming on stage and speaking, and then 2 days of workshops, all happening in Mount Shasta over the summer solstice. So,
and that one, I believe, is in the description.
Is it? Okay, great.
I put that one in the description.
Thank you. Yeah, we're just about to. We have an early bird special that's going to probably be ending within the next couple of days, and we're going. The full website will be available with all the workshops, and you can sign up and sort of customize your experience for that. But we're super excited to be in Mount Shasta, and the energy's there. If you're talking about Lemuria and Telos, and there's many connections to those ancient civilizations through the energy around the mountain that we'll be tapping into.
Beautiful. Love to hear more about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're welcome to come back and chat about that anytime as well. And
Awesome.
thank you so much for joining us today and telling us your story. It was awesome.
My pleasure.
And,
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
so we're just going to say have an awesome week to everyone. And thank you again for joining us. And we will see you all next week. Same time, same place. Have a great week, everyone. Lots of love.
All right. Have an awesome week.
Gerald says, please come back.
Please come back.
All right. We'll do.
Awesome.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.